It's Monday, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, and we're going to break down some of the biggest topics from the weekend of football that was here on the Taproom Treble at the Pitchside Pub. Welcome back to the Taproom Treble, our pints and punditry daily commentary here at the Pitchside Pub. Usually I do this on a live stream, but I didn't have time to get that all set up today, so we're just recording, editing, and putting it out there for you. We're going to talk about some of the biggest topics in the football world. Today was a busy weekend. We had Carabao Cup. We had all kinds of action. We got a lot of things going down that I want to talk about today. So we're going to get right into that, but before we do, hit that subscribe button for me down below so you can follow the channel. Get down in that comment section. Let me know your thoughts on all the stuff we're talking about and anything I missed. Get in that comment section. We can talk about it another time. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky at Pitchside Pub, and check out the website pitchsidepub.com. So the first thing we have to talk about today is the Carabao Cup, and does the Carabao Cup need to exist? That's a question I have asked for a few years, and I'm genuinely torn on the answer. And, English fans get really defensive about the Carabao Cup anytime I talk about this because of the long history of that tournament and that competition. And I respect that, and I love that, and that's part of why I'm torn. I hate to see something like that fall by the wayside. But logistically, it makes all the sense in the world to just completely scrap it. England is the only country that has two domestic cups. It is clearly the second of two. Every single club would rather win the FA Cup than the Carabao Cup. And so, what are we doing here? It really, we talk so much about the crowded game schedule and how many competitions are on, how many games these guys are playing, and how many injuries it's leading to, and then there's a fourth competition in England that some of these clubs have to play. It just doesn't make sense. However, you look at what happened with Newcastle over the weekend, beating Liverpool, and what it means to that Newcastle club and its supporters. And we can talk about ownership all we want, and it's no real joy saying, yay, the Saudis, won a cup, big freaking deal. But the Newcastle fans, this meant the world to. There were people crying. This was 70 years in the making, and so, clearly it does matter, right? So to just scrap it is somewhat insensitive, and it is robbing these people of this joy. That said, as they sort of come down from the euphoria of winning a trophy, there is the, yeah, but it was the Carabao Cup, right? And hey, a trophy's a trophy when you haven't won one in a long time. Any piece of silverware matters, right? So that's a huge, big celebration. I get it. I'm not trying to diminish that at all. I think it diminishes itself by being the second of two competitions. So what do we do with this? Do we scrap it? Or one of the suggestions I've heard is that any club that is appearing in Europe shouldn't be in the Carabao Cup. Take those top 6, 7, 8 teams, however many it is on a given year, and they don't get to participate in it, right? So no club is actually competing in more than 3 competitions. It opens the door for the other clubs who just missed out, and you will get some lower to mid-tier winners in that competition. Now, does that diminish the competition even more? Maybe so, because the top teams aren't in it, but it's already the second competition. It's already diminished itself by being the inferior domestic cup. So that's a solution I'd be okay with. I still don't love it. I would still probably say it's time for it to go, and if they want to replace it with something else down the road, maybe, but there are too many games. The FA Cup already doesn't have the cachet it once did, and now you've got a second domestic cup with it. I mean, you always had the second domestic cup with it, but it's just losing its luster, and I'm not sure I see the value in it anymore. That said, and I feel like I'm really raining on Newcastle fans' parade here today, and I'm not trying to do that because this is an incredible accomplishment for a club that was, in the second division not that long ago, and where they've come from and what they've done, and congratulations to Eddie Howe. And fans, enjoy this. Don't listen to guys like me saying it's an inferior competition. A trophy is a trophy. So I'm torn. I'm genuinely torn here. I don't know that I have the answer. I'd love to get your comments on what this means and where it can fit into the landscape of English football, because I don't think just leaving it as is really working. But when you see the reaction of the Newcastle fans, hard to say it's not working and hard to say it doesn't matter, because clearly this is a red letter day for the black and white, and next time St. James's Park is full, they'll be rejoicing, and good for them. Good for Newcastle fans. You've earned it, and dedicated fan base, a passionate fan base, and that's awesome. So I don't know the answer here, but we got to come up with a better solution. Next up, I want to talk about Jeremy Doku for a little bit, and I'm calling it Doku's dribbling conundrum, because that's what's happening. the last few games, he's really played a huge role for Manchester City, but they haven't done all that well. They haven't done all that well this season. And if you look at some of his raw numbers, they are off the charts incredible, like true outlier elite status, particularly when it comes to dribbling and dribbling past defenders. And so if you want to be the optimist, you look at that and go, man, that is otherworldly. He is the elite of the elite already at this young age when it comes to dribbling and beating defenders off the dribble. That said, it leads to almost nothing. And that's been the pushback, which is, okay, well, he's, the dribble king, but it doesn't lead to any goal creation. And so what good is it doing? And there's a few different ways to look at it. And as with most things, the truth is somewhere in the middle. Yes, he is a dribble king, and it is not leading to anything. That is a fair assessment right now. So the question is why, and can it improve? And I think there's a few causes as to why. One is he is still very raw. He is incredibly fast, he's incredibly good with the ball, and he's great at getting by his defenders, but there doesn't appear to be a great plan afterwards. And in a lot of cases, he dribbles past his defender, and he's so close to the goal line that his only move is some sort of cutback pass, which he tends to fire off without any real destination in mind. It's just, okay, I beat my defender, uh-oh, here's a goal line, I'm running out of room, I better fire it back in the middle and hope somebody's there. And you'd like to see a little more of a finished end product there. That said, there also needs to be somebody there, and this current Manchester City squad does not have those guys. That Phil Foden has not been at his best. He wasn't even in the game for most of it over the weekend, but that's an area where he excels. Kevin De Bruyne would always be there. Ilkay Gundogan can't get his legs there. Rodri would have been there. Nico doesn't appear to have that sort of offensive element to his game. They're missing that midfield sort of fill in the space. Julian Alvarez would have dominated that. Erling Haaland is sitting deep, and that tends to be the problem, is you've got Erling Haaland in the middle, surrounded by 4 defenders. Doku beats his, and he tries to get the ball into Haaland, but he's surrounded. And there's no additional support help there. So part of that falls on Doku, part of that falls on the makeup of this club, the structure, the strategy of it. But what we can say right now is that the dribbling really is not leading to anything. Now, that said, how do we fix that? Well, that's where you have to hope that Pep is a true genius, and this is a very young player who is still very raw. So these are the things that can be worked on. Having the dynamic wingers who then cut crosses into the middle dates back to Manchester City when it was Sterling and Sané and Riyad Mahrez and those types of players, but they also had dominant midfielders filling into the middle. Right now they don't have that. So you do have to hope, if you had a dominant ball-playing midfielder, with a good quick shot, that he would be there to fill in that space. Florian Wirtz, perhaps. Man, what Jude Bellingham would have done with those crosses from Jeremy Doku. That's his forte, filling in from a deeper position and dominating at that top of the box. They need a guy like that. Everybody needs a guy like that, but some sort of player who's good at trailing the possession and filling in at the top of the box. That way, when Doku, and to a lesser extent Savinho, because he's a similar type of player, beat their man to the outside, they have someone back to fill in, to cut to, besides just Erling Haaland, who's going to get all the attention. And in fact, by having him draw more than one defender, it opens up that space at the top of the box. So it could be very dynamic, but it's not yet. So at the moment, I would say it's part Doku and his raw abilities that have not really been fully polished yet, and part of it is the tactics and the makeup of the Manchester City squad. So if you are in the camp that he's the most amazing player in the world and we just need to refine that end product, well, you're probably getting a little overexcited. But if all you can focus on is every time you see those dribbling stats, but it doesn't lead to anything, you're being overly negative. The truth is somewhere in the middle. He can develop a little bit more, and he does need some help to create some end product on all that dribbling. Lastly, I want to touch on Dele Alli at Como, and Dele Alli, you get in the game, you've been waiting for weeks, you get in the game and immediately commit an obvious red card. And there was the debate, him discussing it afterwards, via WhatsApp with Ruben Loftus-Cheek, saying, I can't believe that was a red card. That was a red card, right? It was an obvious red card. Credit to Kyle Walker, whose character can sometimes come in question, but credit to him for arguing to not have his opponent get kicked out of a game. I'm not sure I've ever seen that. It really a disappointing debut altogether. I was really looking forward to Dele Alli coming out, and it was announced, months ago that he was going to be going to Como, and then he had to do a lot of training to even get, on the active roster, to get on a bench spot, and then he was on the bench for a couple games, hadn't seen the pitch, and then finally gets out there and in less than 10 minutes gets a red card. Oh, it's just devastating. This is what happens when you haven't played in a while, right? All the skill in the world, and we don't really know what skill he has left at this point. It's been so long and he's been through so much, but you have to assume he's showing some things in training to even be there. He had to show Como something for them to even sign him, and then Cesc Fabregas is not going to put him out there just as a courtesy, right? That Como is fighting for to not get relegated. Every point matters to them, every game matters to them, every minute matters to them. So he's not going to do that just as a service to Dele Alli. He would have gone somewhere else if that was the case. So you have to assume Cesc Fabregas has seen something he likes out of Dele Alli. Of course, he's not going to be the player he once was, but something in there is still showing them he can do it. I was really excited to see it. Hopefully, now he's going to have to serve a couple game suspension. He can keep training and come back. Hopefully that's not it for him, and he gets another appearance or two and can show that he's still the Dele Alli of old. They're going to need him because Como is going to lose some of their young talent this offseason because of the success they've had. So if he can sort of use the rest of this season to get back into shape, and then maybe he's got a roster spot waiting for him for next year, he could be a piece of that team moving forward. Of course, Cesc Fabregas may not be the coach of it at that point, and who knows what the roster will look like, but still rooting for Dele Alli, still rooting to see a little glimpse of what he once was, and a couple games off now with the red card. Maybe he'll get back into shape, and maybe he can play more than 10 minutes in his next game without getting kicked out. That's going to do it for us today here on the Taproom Treble. Make sure you get down in that comment section. Let me know your thoughts on all these topics. You can also leave some comments on Twitter and Blue Sky at Pitchside Pub. While you're at it, make sure you hit that subscribe button for me down below so you can follow the channel, and check out the website pitchsidepub.com. Thanks as always for joining us here on Pints and Punditry at the Pitchside Pub.